Hello, everybody. What's going on? A2DRadio.com, all of our A2D radio platforms. It's The Rundown. Of course, I'm Zach Barr, Stephen Reichel, and Frank Vespi with us. A little Rundown reunion, happy hours reunion, whatever you want to call it. Me and Frank did a show a long time ago on A2D. Stephen, I don't even know if you were following A2D at that time when me and Frank did a show together. But to those of us that know me and Frank and those listening that know me and Frank, we've kind of been putting on shows together since high school. So, this is nothing new. I'm live on my back porch. Frank, you're live. Let me see. I've been to your house enough times. What is this, your living room?
No.
He's got a lot of rooms in his house. I don't know. Frank's got a pretty big house. I don't know, whatever room we're calling that. I know it's not the room with the wraparound couch that we watched, all those boxing matches and Super Bowls and stuff at. It is that room.
It's the other.
Oh, it's the other. It's the other room that's connected to that room. See,
the upstairs part.
I don't even have an upstairs part or a downstairs part. I've just got like two rooms to my apartment. Frank is over here making me jealous. Steven, you're live. Your room is cool. What do you got? All these like sports memorabilia behind you, big screen TV.
I don't know about big. I mean, it's like 45. It's not big. It's all right.
I mean, if you want to see mine, I'll show you. I've got like this beautiful like 27-inch flat screen TV or 28-inch or whatever, and I thought I was, Billy Badass when, I had that thing. David Rask already tuning in. What's up, David? We're having a lot of fun as usual here on the Rundown today. Instead of talking, I'm tired of, everywhere you look around, people have been trying to find things to talk about in sports with obviously a lot of the live sports not going on. The Big Four at least haven't returned yet, right? Easy to go there. The Big Four haven't returned yet. So everybody's always trying to find conversations and talking points. And I feel like I've seen so many top 10 quarterback lists or top teams this or top this or best that. I'm so tired of going in that direction. I figured we'd spin the narrative and have some fun going in the opposite direction today. We could talk about the worst organizations in all of sports. And we're going to piggyback off of that into having a bottom 10 quarterback discussion, the worst quarterbacks in football. So a lot of shit talking, obviously, a lot of ball busting will be able to go on, and we can have a lot of fun as a group. And the poll question, the New York Knicks, they are the worst organization.
Didn't you say the Cleveland Browns when you sent it to Ralph?
Well, the Cleveland Browns are going to be a team, obviously, that everybody else wants to throw in there, too.
You sent the Cleveland Browns, not the Knicks. No, I can't change it.
I put a question mark after that. No, it's been changed, and it says New York Knicks on the Facebook post. So, yeah, it's perfectly fine. I don't know what you're getting on about. I mean, that was all in a private conversation, and we were discussing what the poll question was going to be, and now you completely blow it up, Frank. Not even 4 minutes in, and we're already off the rails. Literally 30 seconds after that, I said, no, let's do the New York Knicks because I feel like it's a much more accurate representation of the current state of sports.
Being busy.
Yeah, Frank, you look really busy at the moment. Anyway,
I am.
Tom tuning in. He said negative direction, and he said the Knicks are the worst. Yeah, I agree. See, that's why I said the Knicks are the more accurate representation. I feel like I agree. The Knicks being, if I were going to look at top to bottom, who's the worst run organization in all of pro sports right now, it's the New York Knicks. The Browns haven't maybe gotten the results they wanted to yet, but over the past few years, we've at least seen them seem to try to find some sort of positive direction. The New York Knicks are a dumpster fire, and that's why they've got my vote in professional sports, at least, as easily being the worst organization right now in all of pro sports. Stephen, what do you think?
Well, I agree with the poll. Definitely, the Knicks are the worst team right now, just from ownership all on down to the current roster, everything they've tried done in the last 20 years. It's just they have nothing to show for it. I mean, it's sad because they wasted careers of some good players. Like I agree with that, but at the same time, we're going to throw the Browns in, right? Are we not going to include how they were great before the merger? Are we not going to include that? Or are we going to include current team, current time?
I don't think we have to look at directly right now, but I would say maybe if you want to go back a decade, over the last decade, I would say the Knicks have been a dumpster fire since 12-ish, so the 8 of the past, probably the past 8 years, they've just gotten worse and worse, have gone downhill. Whereas at least with the Browns, you can see I feel like they've at least put a plan in place where you feel like they're going in a positive direction. And 7-9 and 8-8 for them is better than what they were at the beginning of the 10 years ago, when you even talking about going further back than that, the beginning of the NFL merger, when they came back as the new Cleveland Browns. 8-8 is way better than what they were for all those years. So that's at least progress on their end. Now, if we're going back, in the history of football, going back to when Marty Schottenheimer was there and all that, obviously they were a good franchise, but the Knicks were a very good franchise at one point too. So it would balance out. I would say it's fair to probably go over the past 10 years, since 2010 till now, and where do you see them kind of move, like the direction they're moving for maybe over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I mean, if that's the case, then we have to put the Detroit Lions in the mix.
Okay, see, I actually don't. I like that. The Lions were another team I definitely thought of, an organization I thought of. I even said like they belong on that list more than the Browns do at this point. They just seem to be the same mediocre team over and over and over again every single year. Bringing a new head coach doesn't seem to change. Matthew Stafford's been there forever, had all types of talent around him on the outside at some points. They just, he's throwing on pace to throw for 5,000 yards last year. They still can't win football games. So there's just a culture sometimes with certain organizations, and I think that's a big thing you see with the Knicks right now. You see with the Lions, and another team I'm going to throw in there until I see anything differently is the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Bengals are one of those franchises in the NFL right now where careers go to die. Like it doesn't matter how much talent there is on that team or around that organization. They haven't won a playoff game in how fucking long, and they had Chad Johnson and TJ Hushmanzada and Carson Palmer and great defenses and 1,500-yard rushers and nothing to show for. So, I mean, there's sometimes a culture that goes along with that, and not just the players.
You can say both Cincinnati teams should be on that list. The Reds wasted so much talent, too.
The Reds, the Reds are fair, especially when you look at where they used to be 30 years ago compared to where they've come to. I mean, that was the Big Red Machine was one of the teams throughout the 70s, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Reds. If you lived anywhere in the country, you would watch those teams on TV. It didn't matter where you lived. They were always on. The Reds, since, the mid-'90s, have seemed to have completely fallen off their pedestal as being one of the top baseball organizations, and they don't seem to be anywhere close to ever regaining that spot. Matter of fact, I would bet money that they'll never regain a spot as one of the top baseball organizations.
And we can stay with baseball. I mean, I got a couple here for baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers, they wasted Robin Yount's career. They wasted, they had Prince Fielder there for a little while, had a decent team, and put it together.
I feel like right now, at least, where you're looking at what they are right now, they've become one of the teams that in baseball has figured out how to get the most out of what they have from a budget perspective and all that. So I'm not going to hate on them too much, considering they've been a playoff team the past couple years, and they've got guys like Christian Yelich in there now, and Council seems to be a pretty good manager. I don't think they'll ever win a World Series, or at least, they'll be lucky, I guess. I don't want to say ever, but they have to go on some type of Cinderella-type run to be able to have a chance at winning a World Series, because they just don't have the payroll and the budget to be there. But a lot of teams are in that conversation in baseball then. I'll take them going to the playoffs and at least having some sort of success over being, the Pirates had, a 20-plus year run where they didn't even have a winning record, for God's sakes, let alone go to the playoffs.
Also remember the teams they had in the early 90s when they had
Barry Bonds,
and they had good teams that just let the teams get ripped apart.
Jim Leland was the manager. They had good leadership, good players.
They used to kill us.
Wasn't Benito Santiago on some of those teams?
I think so.
Catcher, him and Bonds started juicing together, I believe, if I remember correctly. Benito Santiago, then he spent a year. Benito Santiago spent a year with the Phillies in the mid-'90s. Like, such a weird fucking, just off year. Like, why would you come to Philly for 1 year? Like, it was like nobody else wanted you that bad. Nobody was coming to play for the Phillies in '96. Why did Benito Santiago end up here? That's how bad. Imagine how bad his free agent market must have been, where his agent was like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to go sign with the Phillies." It is what it is. The Phillies, if we were having this conversation, back 20 years ago when I was a kid and when me and Frank were kids, the Phillies might be in this conversation at that point. We got so lucky and so spoiled as teenagers in high school, being able to watch that team grow and mature with Rollins and Utley and Howard and develop into the World Series team that they were. And here we are over 10 years later.
And what about your Phoenix, especially the Coyotes?
Oh, well, the Coyotes, I mean, that's not my team, but have they ever really been relevant as far as the hockey world goes? I'm not the biggest hockey guy, and I'll openly admit that I don't really have a hockey team.
I think they had a couple playoff runs a few years after the expansion. That was about it.
Cincinnati, the Marlins have 2 World Series. As much as I hate the Marlins, the Marlins have won 2 World Series. How can you put them in the worst organization?
Destroyed the Marlins twice.
Sure he did. He's got 2 World Series rings though. So do what you want. Hey, and I wish I had their farm system. I wish I had their scouting department. Think about how many superstars they've developed over the years as an organization. Miguel Cabrera and Josh Beck. Great. You know what? I wish we could have those guys come up in this farm system. Then we wouldn't have to trade them away. Unfortunately, we couldn't even develop a talent like that. Why can't we sign a Miguel Cabrera? What the fuck happened? We had the same chance at him as everybody else back in the day. We couldn't sign that guy. We don't develop Josh Beckett's and Miguel Cabrera's and Edgar Renteria's and guys like that. Both those late 90s Marlins teams and early 2000s Marlins teams, one thing they could do is develop talent and also find ways to make trades for young talent that they have. Hanley Ramirez came over from the Red Sox and shit for them. They got him back in a deal and developed him into the best shortstop in baseball for a couple years. Yeah. That's how you win 2 World Series with the lowest payroll in all of baseball, is because you can develop young talent. We haven't developed they develop a lot of young talent too. They do. They were fun to watch in the late 90s, especially with Larry Walker and Todd Helton and all those guys. Obviously, Walker wasn't their own product, but
don't forget about the big cat.
Andres Galarraga. Yeah, they had a lot of talent. And again, 07, they make a run to the World Series with a bunch of young talent. What we can't develop. We can't find Shu Tulowitzkis and guys like that. You know what I mean? Like, when was the last time? Like, it was really doing that. The last time we had anybody like that was doing that World Series run. We can't ever find a young stud that'd be able to hit in the middle of our lineup. We've got to go out and sign it. Why can't we go out and sign it and also develop it? That's the one thing that drives me crazy. We now are willing to spend the money. One thing we never were willing to do. And now we're willing to spend the money, and we go from an organization that used to be able to develop talents like Scott Rowland into, MVP type players, all-star level players, and now we just got to rely on going out and buying all those guys because we have a scouting department or player development department, I guess you should call it. It's more about player development that seems to struggle being able to get the most out of guys and their abilities. David Raska says
Detroit was good in the last 10 years, haven't they, with the Verlander teams?
Oh, the Tigers, absolutely, yeah. The Tigers, they went to a couple World Series, so it's hard to put them on that list. Frank, who would you put on your list as far as, like, bad organizations, the worst organizations of pro sports? Do you like the Knicks on that list?
Of course, the Knicks are on this list, but I think a team that was absolutely worse than the Knicks all the time, you got to look at the Donald Sterling-owned Clippers. And an incompetent and a racist as your owner, and just you missed the playoffs for almost your entire existence in Los Angeles, and then just nobody wanted to play there. Like, playing for the Clippers was like a death sentence.
Yeah, so, they became the Lakers' little sibling, that always got pushed around and beat up.
Basically, they were the Jam Brady of LA sports. They were so bad that when they had to book the Staples Center, they were behind the Sparks. The WNBA team, the Sparks. That's how bad the Clippers were under Donald Sterling.
Nothing says you're the redheaded stepchild like that, Right. Nothing claims that you're the stepchild, like being behind the WNBA team when it comes to say at the arena.
Padres wasted Tony Gin's career, and still not any good.
What happened?
The San Diego Padres completely wasted Tony Gwynn's career and still on.
Yeah. I mean, they went to a World Series at least there in the late '90s with them. But yeah, I thought about them when I thought about the worst organizations in sports. They've been trying to figure out this Moneyball approach to baseball for 15 years, and they haven't been able to figure it out yet. You might as well just stop trying. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you haven't figured it out yet, go a different approach. They finally signed Manny Machado to a $300 million contract, and that didn't make him any better. So, what makes me laugh about a team like that is, like, there's examples of teams around baseball that do that very well. Like the Minnesota Twins are a great example right now of a team that has seemed to have figured out the Moneyball analytics side of baseball and being able to use it to help them develop talent or do whatever they need to do to put a winning product on the field without having the biggest payroll. Rocco Baldelli's their manager now, and he's obviously comes from that Rays organization that's always done that. They figured it out within a few-year period, and the Padres have been trying to take 15 years to figure it out, and they still haven't.
And another old team that used to be terrible, that was good within the last 5 to 10 is the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, they until they won a World Series, they absolutely were in that conversation. And then you win a World Series, and it seems like everybody forgives you for a little bit, but they're slowly heading back into that that realm of mediocrity or whatever you want to call it. They're slowly heading right back to where they were. They had a stretch there where they developed a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Imagine if we could have developed Moustakas and Hosmer and all those names they developed at one time and all the pitchers on that team. I mean, the last time we did that we were winning a World Series. It's amazing that we hit on that many guys with Ed Wade drafted. Hamels, Utley, Howard, Rollins.
What about
Brett Myers is in that conversation.
Raiders.
Pat Burrell. The Raiders.
It used to be the Raiders a bit.
Yeah, the Raiders. I mean, for right now, yeah, they're definitely not they're not the Raiders. They're not the 3-12 team that they were, I guess, 10 years ago when Jamarcus Russell was being drafted. But yeah, they're still not anywhere near back to that the intimidation factor that came with what that team and that logo and all that was 30 years ago when you were growing up, Stephen. Late 80s, still into the 90s. They still had that presence about them that everybody feared. Everybody feared the Raiders. They were the big bad Raiders. They haven't been the big bad Raiders in a long time.
It's almost like when Long retired, that whole era kind of just faded away, and the Raiders weren't the Raiders anymore.
Yeah, I think we see this all around sports. The Cowboys are going through it right now. Like Al Davis at one point was just win, baby, right? And then he got to the point where he was so old and senile, he forgot more about football than he had ever known to begin with, And you just get to a point where you just need to take a step back, and you shouldn't be the guy calling shots anymore. And I think they were just kind of doomed for probably the final 10 to 15 years of his ownership there because he just wasn't competent and wasn't in a state to probably be the guy running the organization. And you see the Cowboys are kind of currently in that state now with Jerry Jones. If there's ever an example of somebody who, like, Jerry Jones is an example of a guy that, like, he still thinks he's smarter than everybody else. He thinks he's still, the smartest guy in the room at all times, yet he's the guy that's forgotten more about football than he ever knew at any point to begin with. Like, he still thinks he's the guy from the 1990s, and he's not that guy anymore. And until he steps completely away from that role, the Cowboys are going to be the clusterfuck and the dumpster fire that they are.
Yes. And speaking of dumpster fires, we have an elephant in the room that we haven't discussed. The Washington Redskins have been absolutely horrendous the way.
Yeah, Daniel Snyder is you don't hear anything good, it seems like, from that part of the country. Whenever you hear anything get reported about the Redskins from people that cover the organization, from people that played in the organization, nobody seems to like the way Daniel Snyder runs that football team. And when you've been running a football team for over 20 years and nobody likes the way you do it, when you've sucked at your job for that long, I don't know what else to tell the guy. If he's this stubborn where he can't take a back seat and just decide, okay, I suck at doing this, maybe I need to find somebody that's good and better at this role than I am. You're probably never going to get that message across to him. Stu Fowkes, my old Little League coach. You want to talk about, forget about worst teams, forget about bad teams. We talk about one of the greatest dynasties in all of sports at any level was the Little League organization that Stu Fowkes put together throughout his entire coaching career in Florence Township. Coach, I don't want to misrepresent you. You better put the number out there correctly. How many championships was it? It's your entire coaching career? Because we won 3 straight when I was with him. This man played in the Mets organization back in the early 80s. Stu Fowkes was a pitcher in the Mets organization. And when we played Little League ball, we killed teams. We were dominant, 15-1, 17-2. We were coming there to kick your ass.
Hey, man.
Now he's good. I hope he doesn't leave on me now. I just spent all this time building him up, giving him this legendary introduction. I hope he didn't. Are you going for yes? Yes, I am, Coach. I'm glad you noticed. We're talking about how my sideburns and my facial hair are trying to get into a fight. We're not sure who's going to win, but definitely they're well on their way to a heavyweight matchup. Stu Fowkes is a big Brett Favre fan and a big Packers fan, so he might want to chime in on this. Coach, you hate the Lions and the Vikings and any of those teams in that division. What's the worst organization in pro sports? The worst run organization in pro sports. Who's worse than anybody out there? This should be fun. We'll see his reaction. He doesn't hold anything back.
There's another one. We got what about the Sacramento Kings?
See, for me, get out of here with your Chivas USA. Get out, ban him out of the group. Do not come on the rundown with some soccer talk like we're going to over here. Like I'm worried about the worst run organizations in sports. If we're going to put the worst run organizations in pro sports, it's Team USA that belongs on this list. I'm not worried about crappy MLS team. Now, Team USA, the national team, might belong on this list. They've been pretty bad. Frank has got a note. Frank, what does your note say?
Nothing.
Nothing. I mean, you don't hold up a note. You don't hold up a note for no reason. Frank, you've got an opinion to share.
No, it's just telling people to buy your dad something nice on Father's Day.
Yeah. Now that we've wasted 30 seconds of everybody's life to interrupt this show with that nonsense, I guess we should get back to business. Steven, the Sacramento Kings, they were never relevant enough for me to really care, or I guess even think about them being on this list.
Exactly.
I think that's what maybe makes teams like the Knicks and teams like that
or even,
the top answer.
Like, Charlotte's basketball team. With outside of when.
I mean, yeah, obviously the Hornets, the one thing you could say about them is they had the most popular sports jacket of the 1980s, right? Everybody wanted that Charlotte Hornets starter jacket.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they were ever a good enough franchise for me to put them there. But I would say, I'll say this. It's been disappointing since Michael Jordan took over that organization. You would have thought with his winning mentality and how much he demands excellence out of people around him, they would have figured this whole thing out. It must drive him crazy to sit up there in the owner's suite. No wonder he drinks that. You saw that hard, he drinks that really hard liquor, that whiskey or whatever. That it's like it looks like it's a badass liquor. I can't remember what it is, but we saw they featured it all on the Last Dance documentary. He loves sipping on that shit. No wonder he sits up in the ownership suite, sipping on hard whiskey. He's got to watch that muck out there on the court every single night. I loved on his 50th birthday when they were telling stories about how he would challenge players to games of one-on-one at practice just to prove the point that he still got it enough to kick those guys' ass. But then he'd have to spend the next 5 days icing down his knees and his quads and his ankles, and because he just can't do it without he's too old to be able to keep up with them all. But he has to prove the point. He's willing to get his ass kicked and make his body hurt just to prove the point that he can kick these young kids' ass in a game of one-on-one still. How embarrassing is it to you as a first-round NBA draft pick to come in and have Michael Jordan at 50 years old kick your ass in a game of one-on-one? Talking about getting put in your place early on, knowing your role in that organization. When the owner comes in and kicks your ass in a game of one-on-one, You can't make no contract demands. You can't make no playing time demands. You just better keep your mouth shut and go with the flow. All MJ did when he bought a team was put a Jordan store in the arena. Well, Spidey would know that. Mike Parker lives down there in Carolina. He lives in North Carolina. He would know that. You've been there? Is it a nice store at least? My girlfriend's got family from the Charlotte area. I might go just to go to the store.
What about the Buccaneers?
Yeah, they've got a Super Bowl in the last 20 years. Can't, hate on them too much.
All right, but how many? They haven't been very successful playoff-wise either in the last 10.
They just signed the greatest quarterback of all time. They're doing pretty good for themselves at the moment. So
they haven't seen the field yet. Please stop.
Now, if they blow up and go like 6-10 or something this year with Brady at quarterback, then I will completely fall on the floor laughing, and I will agree with you that they're one of the worst organizations in football.
They haven't done anything. Look, they have 2 Pro Bowl receivers, and they haven't won nothing in 5 years.
I agree. When they also haven't been like the worst team in football. They won 7 games last year with the guy that had historic turnover numbers. So that kind of shows they have talent. And Bruce Arians a good coach. I mean, listen, Bruce Arians is a good coach. They've got a lot of talent there. They're at least doing things right in that department. They know how to scout talent, draft it, bring it into the building, and at least develop it somewhat. And then they found ways to, get a good head coach to, whatever money. I mean, I'm sure it's not that hard to convince somebody to come out of retirement when you say you can still go live on the Gulf of Mexico and we'll pay you as much money as you want. But still, they convinced a guy that's won Super Bowls and been with Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger and has a hell of a track record, won everywhere he's been. They convinced him to come lead their franchise. So I'm not going to hate on them too much at the moment.
The Jaguars.
Yes, they absolutely belong in the conversation. Yeah. They haven't been good in over 20 years. They had, when they think about the difference in their image now compared to where they were an expansion team. When they were an expansion team, those first few years with Mark Brunell, Keenan McCardell, and there's Tom Coughlin years. Jimmy Smith was on those teams, Fred Taylor. They were a game away from the Super Bowl for a couple years there. And everybody's like, oh, wow, this is going to be one of the best organizations in football for years to come. And they haven't been diddly fucking shit in 20-plus years.
And then
worst organization of all time is AAF.
Another team.
What is this David Estrada guy talking about?
Another team that's won a championship within the last 20, but still terrible, is the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. It's amazing that they that was almost like a fluke run that they went on that year.
And we
they had some talent, but yeah, I would say, the Florida teams, Parker's talking about all the Florida teams stink until Brady signs with one of them. Yeah, none of them really have the only team down here that's really got a legit, I've got a mosquito flying in front of my face. Only team down here with a legit fan following that seems to be consistent is the Tampa Bay Lightning. People are really rabid about their hockey down here in the Tampa area where I'm at. Now you go down further towards Miami and they could give a damn about the Florida Panthers. But where I'm at in the Tampa area, they're rabid about the Lightning. It's probably the most supported sport down here. They support it more than the Bucks and obviously way more than the Rays. Nobody goes to fucking Rays games.
And we're talking about bad hockey. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the Canadian teams that are just historically bad.
Look at Stu's a Mets fan, so of course he's going to come in here with the Phillies are the longest team in professional sports, oldest franchise, and he's talking about how they've lost their 11th game. We've won 2 World Series, Coach, and we won a World Series within the relatively recently, 12 years ago or whatever. Your Mets are more of a poorly run organization. They belong more in this conversation now than the Phillies do. The Mets are a dumpster fire with the fucking Wilpons or whatever the hell you call them that are running that organization. Get out of here with your Philadelphia hate.
All I got to say is y'all still paying Barry Bonds. Oh, that's all I got to say.
Bobby Bonilla. They're still paying Bobby Bonilla.
Yeah, that's
Yes, but yeah, same. Yeah, you're still paying Bobby Bonilla. You've had an owner that was caught up in a Ponzi scheme. there's a lot to look at that. They're almost as bad as the Knicks when you look at the ownership group as far as how corrupt and
go look at what
terrible everything is.
Last 20 years. That's the last time they were good. Was 2000. The last time they were good. The Subway Series.
Yeah, listen, Mike Piazza might be my favorite non-Philly player of all time. So, he used to kill us every single time it seemed like we played them. But that was a long time ago. If we're talking about the Mike Piazza years as the last time that, like, the Mets were, like, somebody or an organization that I wanted to be, that's way too long ago for us to be having this conversation. They obviously caught lightning in a bottle in 06 with David Wright. And those young Mets teams, David Wright and Jose Reyes, Beltran was on that team when they lost to the Cardinals. And then they lost to the Royals or whatever it was in the World Series a few years back. But take those 2 years out of it. Okay, so you've got the year against the Royals where they made the fluke run to the World Series when all that pitching staff, Harvey and those guys, DeGrom, were red hot. But they also were arguably one of the worst teams in baseball for the better part of 5 or 6 years there too. So that 1 year, and they didn't. If they win the World Series, that makes up for it. But just going there and losing, just kind of like adds to how much of a bad organization you are. Like you suck for 5 straight years, go to the World Series, one fluke year, lose, and then you're back to sucking again. That doesn't make you any good just because you got a fluky run to the World Series.
I mean, you could say, well, we should have won 3 with the team that we built at the back end of the 2000s. The end.
We definitely should have won more than we should have won more than one. Absolutely. When you look at the 2009 team and the 2010 team and say that talent-wise they were better than that 2008 team, there's no excuse for it. We got old in a hurry. Our offense got old in a hurry, and nobody wanted to seem to admit it until it was too late.
I'll say something about that team. If you didn't hold them in the minors for about 3 seasons past where they should have been, you had more titles.
I look at that team as a collection of things that could have. A lot of things could have been different. One of the big things that would have been huge with that team is if they could have somehow found a way to convince Scott Rowland to stick around and sign a long-term extension. Because then you would have been talking about having a cornerstone piece at third base. Ask Cardinals fans how important he was to their 2006 World Series championship team. If people forget how good Rowland was for a while there before the injuries derailed his career later on. And it seems like the guy's actually gaining steam to make a run at the Hall of Fame. When you look at this was an interesting stat I saw about Scott Rowland. Obviously, when he was here and then with his years in the Cardinals when he was healthy, he was one of the best offensive players at that position. But defensively, since analytics and all that have become a big thing over the past 20 years, he apparently grades out as the greatest defensive third baseman in baseball history to this point, as far as his range factor and things like that go. And, obviously with the Phillies, he was a great two-way player. But that was one of the things that was phenomenal about him. His defense early on in his career was out of this world. And when you have a 280 career batting average, over 300 career home runs, and you have 10 Gold Glove awards at the hot corner, yeah, you're pretty damn close to a Hall of Fame career. It's borderline. If we could have found a way to keep him around and then had Utley, Rollins, Howard, and all those guys in the equation, that's a pretty dirty fucking team.
He was so spurned by this organization.
Of course. There was no chance. I'm with you. It was 0%. But that would have been one of those things that would have turned this thing around much sooner, was if you got him to stick around. Obviously, anybody that was around for that time knows there was a 0% chance of it happening. He just didn't want to be here. He didn't want to play for, and I don't blame him. You don't want to play for an organization at the time. What I really blame there is the Phillies front office, because if they would have committed to spending money a little bit earlier on, maybe a guy like him would have seen the writing on the wall and been like, hey, maybe they are willing to go out and sign a couple big free agent guys. But they never did that when he was here. It's the same reason Kurt Schilling demanded to get traded at one point, is because they didn't seem to want to commit to bringing in any, or spending money to bring in the talent necessary to make runs at championships, or at least, even winning division titles and shit like that. So that was a really ugly period in Phillies baseball. Citizens Bank Park being built helped tremendously, because it was actually a beautiful place to come play, and players actually,
it's
like playing there.
If you did build Citizens Bank Park, it was going to die. Baseball was going to die.
Yeah, I mean, Veterans Stadium, I mean, by the time it was ripped down, I mean, as a baseball stadium, it was a shithole to begin with, but at least you could go there and watch Eagles games, and, you know, you didn't know how much of a shithole it was. Like, it was your place. Like, you knew you had an advantage. You know, as Eagles fans, you know, playing in the vet, it was loud, it was rowdy. Other teams were afraid to come there. Other teams' fans were afraid to come there. It actually gave you an intimidation factor. In baseball, I can't tell you how many games I went to in the late '90s there, where there was maybe 10,000 people in the fucking stands. Just, yeah, you're just like, what are we all doing here? Like, it's like,
You know how bad it was? They were giving away free tickets in hot dog packages. That's how bad baseball was in the early. It was bad.
oh, it was bad.
Baseball flags, you get 2 tickets in it.
Oh, you know what? But you know, some of those worst years brought on some of my best memories, because you could go there and literally not pay attention to the game and still see some of the most entertaining shit you'd ever see in your life. Between all the drunken, intoxicated idiots that were, you know, already intoxicated before they got to the game, and now, you know, here they are, another 10 beers deep in the 7th inning, and the Phillies are getting blown out 8-1 or 8-0 or, you know, something ridiculous. And yeah, you're watching the people fight, you know, 2 rows over from you, and it's more entertaining than the product that was on the field. But I'll tell a quick story about the vet, since Roscoe talks about the All-Star game there. I remember it had to be in like 2000, 2001 or so. I was a little kid, probably 8 years old or so. And I think it was 01, because the Phillies were in the run there with the Braves, trying to keep pace with them for the division title. And we were there on like some Sunday afternoon in the late summer, and a big thunderstorm came in. And I just remember all of us getting pushed back into the tunnel, and watching this like just rain cloud pretty much make its way over like, you could watch it come over from like Philadelphia, make its way over top of the stadium, and then it was like just this like giant like tunnel of rain that just made its way up, like, and you could tell it was going to come up the stand into the tunnel and hit the ball and just completely fuck us all up. And I'll never forget, as a little kid, people running for their lives and like trying to take cover, and doing jumping behind hot dog vendors and everything they possibly could to prevent getting hit by this giant monsoon that was making its way up. And John Rocker, you'll remember this, because this is right after John Rocker had came out with his racist comments and all the types of nonsense that it was going on. Remember when he was getting the most hated man in professional baseball because he was such a fucking idiot. And I remember he came in to try to close the game out for the Braves, and there was probably 30,000 people there. And, you know, half of them were probably Braves fans, let's be honest. This was during a time when Phillies fans weren't really showing their face in public. And the Braves fans were booing this guy louder than the Phillies fans were. I mean, I've never seen more people in unison boo somebody that loud in my entire life. And I've been to Phillies sporting events all over the city, at every single arena. I've never seen us give it to somebody worse than we gave it to John Rocker that day.
Yeah, it has to be up there. I mean, you know, you might have some returns back to Philly that weren't so popular, but other than that, yeah, I think that has to be one of them.
Frank just left on us. I love how Frank just dipped out. Like, didn't even contribute anything to the damn show. Like, what the hell, Frank? We asked for your opinion on something.
I think we ran him out. It's either that or he was busy. You know,
See, Steven, you jump in and talk whatever the hell you feel like. You don't worry about it. You just talk. I do the same thing. Like, we got to hold Frank's hand and like be like, hey, Frank, would you like to have a turn in the conversation? Oh, he's not feeling 100%. Oh, no, he's not feeling 100%.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You want to move on to your bottom 10 quarterback list? The worst quarterbacks in the NFL. This will be fun. I feel like we're going to have so much fun shit talking here.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess let's go down and see. Like,
throw a name out there. Who's the worst starting quarterback in football, in your opinion?
Well, since we're doing 10, I guess I'd say the best and the worst. Start there.
You can start on. Yeah, do either way. Start with however you like.
Well, I would have to say the best and the worst would be Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay. Anything, but he's had a decent enough career. I'm with you. He's better. He's better than people give him credit for.
He is. He's the king of the journeyman. But like, if you think about it, he's been to so many teams and that stuff like that. It's never worked for whatever reason. So literally, out of the worst of them, he's probably the best of them.
I've heard teammates say that they love playing for him. I've heard former teammates say like how they love playing for him. I've heard the term I've heard is they say Fitzmagic is real. They say that that term Fitzmagic that they use with him, they're like, that's real. Like when you play with him, he does have a special aura about him, like just something there that like makes you want to rally around with him or rally around and play hard for him. He's a future head coach, would you say? Ryan Fitzpatrick, without question, got to be a future head coach in this league.
Oh, I think he's going to be, if not a quarterback's coach, a head coach for somebody.
Way too smart, and then the Harvard education and all that,
Dwayne Haskins.
Okay. Yeah.
He was
got a
showing
lot to prove.
He has an arm, but you have to think with the way that organization goes that it's not going to play out. It's not going to play. I mean, he could very well eat my words here, but I think out of the guys that were drafted, I think Daniel Jones probably has a chance of having a bigger upside than Dwayne Haskins does.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I think as Eagles fans, we try to hate on the Giants and teams like that as much as we can. I thought there was some really positive things from Daniel Jones in his rookie year. I think if I was a Giants fan, I would be very, very positive and optimistic about what our future could hold with him as your quarterback. He's obviously a smart kid. You don't go to Duke without being a smart kid. I think he clearly wasn't anywhere near ready to get thrust into that role last year. But by the time the end of the year came around, he had taken some blows. He had definitely taken his shots and got punched in the mouth a few times. But he had a pretty decent rookie year. I would definitely be excited as a Giants fan.
It's more of a knock on the organization than to Dwayne's talents. I just think he's in a situation where he's doomed to fail.
I think. I think if you're Haskins right now, here's the one good thing for you, and hopefully we talked about Snyder and how much of a horrible piece of crap owner he is. When you bring in a guy like Ron Rivera to be your head coach, Ron Rivera's not just going to be like, okay, whatever you say, Mr. Snyder. Like that's not Ron Rivera's style. He's going to have a say. He's not going to be afraid to be like, you know what, Daniel, shut the fuck up and take a seat in your fucking, just go to your office, take a seat, and let the football people handle this, okay? Like I really feel like Rivera's not taking that job unless there was some type of conversation that was had that made it clear. Listen, you ain't just going to come and tell me how to do things and tell me how to run shit. Like I'm going to have a big say in how we run things and the players we bring in here and the way this all goes. So if there's one thing that maybe Haskins could have that other players didn't have before him is there'll be some type of stability there with Rivera as your head coach, which is obviously super important for any type of young quarterback.
We're talking as of right now, the way the landscape looks. So he's 9.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like where your head's at there.
He's 9. And here's one that used to be great, that is terrible, and going to run this team out of their division this year. And it's Philip Rivers.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. He looks shot. He just looks like a guy with he's a shot fighter.
In my opinion, for me, is because of what he's done previously. If not, if I'm going based off of last year, he would probably be different. That's how. Well,
they still have Jacoby Brissett there too, out in Indy, right?
Yeah, but a lot of people still have him on like your list of bad quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Brissett might be a better option than Philip Rivers, to be honest. How about this? I'll put it to you like this. If Jacoby Brissett was our backup quarterback right now, I think we'd have a hell of a lot of confidence. Hey, I like that option at backup. If something happened to Carson, I like that guy. He can step in and play. Yeah. That's kind of my point there. Is like you at least he's not much worse than Philip Rivers at this point. He might even be a little better. And if Rivers starts to struggle, you at least have an option there where, all right, Jacoby, go on. It's your job again. This guy stinks. He can't cut it. Yeah, I think they're taking a shot where they hope he can be. He has familiarity with Frank Reich. Reich was the offensive coordinator out there for a few years with Rivers when his career kind of got rejuvenated. So I think that's part of that. Part of why they took that shot there. But I don't think they're going to be shy in making that. If Rivers struggles early, I don't think they're going to be shy in making a change and going to Brissett if they have to.
Yeah, and another one. We're getting real close to bust stage is Jared Goff.
With Derek Carr?
No, Jared Goff. He's getting real close.
Jared Goff.
He's getting close to busting.
Yeah.
Experiences, but they run through receivers like it's water. Why can't they? Why can't they put a weapon around him? Why can't they find that? They literally not early in the ground. If it wasn't for their defense, I don't think they'd be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think McVay, people like to rip McVay because he's, they call him Wonder Boy and all that. I get it. I don't like people that try to act like the smartest person in the room either and all that. But McVay does a great job from a scheme perspective of hiding Jared Goff's flaws and putting him in a good position to use his skill set in the best ways he possibly can. But Jared Goff's just not physically gifted enough or physically talented enough to be anything more than what he is. He's a system quarterback. And, once you figure out a system and you figure out what you got to do to stop that system quarterbacks usually fail. And he had, maybe a two-year stretch there with McVay, one where they went to the Super Bowl where you were like, hey, you can win with this guy. This is why I'm scared about Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. I don't think he's physically gifted enough and physically talented enough to be anything more than what he already is. He showed that in the Super Bowl. His own head coach didn't fucking trust him in the Super Bowl. If you don't, Kyle Shanahan was afraid to put the ball in Jimmy G's hands in the second half. That's how bad he had looked at times throughout that game. So, and then he had a chance to win the game at the end with under 2 minutes. Emmanuel Sanders is wide open down the field, and he overthrows the guy by 3 yards. I mean, you didn't even give a guy a chance to make a play on the football. You overthrew him by 3 yards. So when you're showing that type of ability in the biggest game of your life, it doesn't matter how good somebody is at building a system around you. Eventually, that system is going to get figured out and exposed a little bit. I think that's where we're at with the Rams. I think for Garoppolo's sake, at least with the 49ers, they've got so much talent on both sides of the ball out there. And they've seemed to have been really, really good at drafting and then also developing talent where they're still probably going to win football games. I don't think they can win a Super Bowl with him in San Fran. I don't think the 49ers can win a Super Bowl with a Garoppolo at quarterback.
Probably the number one first round pick that has the biggest bullet on his back that is on this list right now is Baker Mayfield. It's up to him.
Okay, you put him in your bottom 10.
It's up to him. Listen, he had the iffy rookie season, and he took several steps back last season.
He's got to learn how to focus more on football and just shut the fuck up sometimes and not worry about. I love the fact that he wants to be himself. I love the fact that he doesn't want to be a robot at a position where it seems like everybody's become afraid to show their true personality and just be the robotic character that answers every question the same way. I like the fact that he wants to be him, but there's times where you just don't have to try so hard to make that point. Just shut the fuck up and let things be what they are. And I think he called it foot and mouth. I think he even said I had a tendency to put my foot in my mouth too much this past year. Yeah. Don't give people a reason to root against you. Don't give other NFL players a reason to put a target on you and aim for you.
He's his biggest critic and worst enemy at this point in time. Like I said, it's on him to change the narrative that's about him right now.
But I think unlike a guy like Goff,
he can still be that talent. It's up to him.
Okay, so I'll agree with that because I think unlike a guy like Goff, who I just think is very limited from a talent perspective, I think Mayfield has all the ability in the world to be a top quarterback. I think he's got the arm talent. I think he's got the ability to make every throw. He's shown that at times, the ability to make every throw. It's just not necessarily consistent. But the deep outs and the throws like that you have to be able to make at the NFL level, I've seen him make those throws. There's been enough of it there to say, yeah, if you can make that throw, you can make any throw there is at the NFL level. You just got to make it a consistent enough thing to do it on a week-in, week-out basis. I at least see enough talent with him where I'm like, okay, I'll take the talent and I'll try to figure out how to groom the rest of it. People mature at different stages in their life. He's clearly very immature still for being 24 years old, and the NFL is a league where, listen, you got to grow up fast. It is what it is. Figure it the fuck out. You can't just, be Cam Newton, I think, went through that problem, and it's fucking hurt his career. And he's to the point where now his career might be over. You can't take until you're 30 years old to figure out what it's like to be a professional and how you have to carry yourself away from the football field. Those are things you've got to figure out pretty early on. If it takes too long for you to figure that out, it's going to impact your career in a negative way. So this is a big year for Baker. I'm with you. It's a big year for him. He's got to figure some of that stuff out and take a step forward.
If he doesn't deliver, then he's probably going to be in the middle of this list.
Yeah, and he ends up in a position where, people question. You've got Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham and all this talent. I imagine Bradley Chubb or whatever the fuck his name is, the running back. You've got Nick Chubb, I think his name is. I'm getting them fucking confused. Bradley Chubb's the defensive player. But yeah, then you've got some studs on the defensive side of the ball for Cleveland. You've got all this talent on your football team, and you find a way to go 8-8 with all that talent. You know who else has seemed to find a way to go 8-8 with all that talent? And also, we always seem to talk about how great of a quarterback talent he is a guy like Matthew Stafford. Oh, yeah, look how great of a quarterback talent he is. Yeah, but at some point, you just get labeled as a guy that is an underachiever. And no matter how much talent, physical talent you have, you're never going to be a guy that's going to be considered a top quarterback because
he's one of those guys who
you can't win.
I think Matt's one of these guys who's like extremely football smart, but when it comes to actually like applying it to the field, there's just something that prevents it.
See, Matthew Stafford, to me, I like where you went with that. He's the example. My girlfriend just came to say hi to me for a minute and interrupt our live stream. Since you want to say interrupt people, why don't you say hi to people?
Hi, I guess.
Okay. Anywho, Matthew Stafford's a guy to me that, like, we all went to high school with that person. Super athletically gifted. He's just a total fucking meathead. Like, have you met a book that you like? Like, have you come across a book where you were like, oh, I want to read that book? He doesn't strike me as somebody that's like, a smart guy as far as being able to figure out that side of it. Like Peyton Manning had some physical tools, but what separated a guy like Manning was his ability to just be mentally ahead of everybody else on the field. Matthew Stafford's never one step ahead of anybody from a mental perspective. I don't trust him to come to the line of scrimmage, see what's going on with the defense, to make the changes necessary.
And the Lions aren't in any better shape with their backup. Their backup, what was it, David Blau or something like that? They're not in any good
No
shape.
idea. Yeah. They're not. That's Matthew Stafford's kind of like he comes from that Brett Favre school of quarterbacking. I don't really have to use my head. I've just got such a good arm. I'll just use my arm to my arm will make up for what my head isn't. But very few people have that type of arm strength and arm ability. Brett Favre is the greatest example of a guy that had elite enough arm ability to be able to make up for the mental side that wasn't always there.
Tony Romo was another one.
Romo's another guy. He comes from that school. Absolutely, complete gunslinger. Never seen a window he doesn't think he can fit that ball in. You know what I mean? The window could be completely closed. Yeah. The drapes are even pulled shut. He still thinks it was open enough for him to fit that ball in there. What do you mean?
Oh yeah, man. He was always good for us for that. Always throw some picks at the right time.
Who else would you have on your list?
What we got? Well, we already said Cam Newton for the Panthers. What was it, Kid Allen?
What's that?
The kid from the Panthers, Kyle Allen.
Josh Allen. Josh Allen's with the Kyle Allen you're thinking of. Kyle Allen, yeah. Yeah, Kyle Allen. Didn't he just sign with the Redskins or something?
Did he? Oh, then who's their quarterback?
Yeah, I know that. We got to look that one up. They must have signed somebody.
All right,
let's see. Carolina Panthers. They drafted somebody, didn't they?
Oh man.
Let's find out who's on their active roster. This will be fun. The only person that really matters on that roster at the moment is Christian McCaffrey. Anyway, so yeah, Kyle Allen. I think he followed Rivera to Washington, but I'm not 100% sure. Oh, of course, Teddy Bridgewater's their starting quarterback. How could we forget that? Remember they signed Teddy Bridgewater. So Yeah, I don't know. He's still, to be honest, Bridgewater might still be. I like Bridgewater as a kid, and I think he's a good young man. But he might be in my bottom 10. We'll have to wait and see.
No, I got not me. No. So we got Gardner Minshew.
Come on, you can't put Gardner Minshew on that list.
No, I ain't giving him no love. Man, he did a good job last season.
Who is this Damian Estrada guy? He just brought up Rex Grossman. Damian, we're talking about the worst 10 quarterbacks in football right now. I don't care about guys that played in the league 10 fucking years ago. Holy shit. Rex Grossman. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, Gardner, he didn't do better than Nick, in my opinion.
Minshew didn't do better than Nick Foles, in your opinion?
They were about the same.
I think you're out of your mind.
Were they more dynamic for some reason?
I think Gardner Minshew has a more of an it factor about him than Nick Foles. I'm not holding my breath for him to turn into anybody, but I think he's just got this thing about him that players love playing around him, and he's got enough ability where he's at least going to get a shot to be the starter.
So he's another Ryan Fitzpatrick. Is that what you're telling me?
He could be, but that's not going to be bad. That's not a bad upside for a 6th-round pick. But yeah, I think he's serviceable. I mean, even look at his rookie numbers. He had a 6-6 record, and he threw for almost 3,300 yards with 21 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
He didn't have a running game, and they were down.
I'm with you. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. For a 6th-round pick, I mean, that's much better. I mean, I didn't even think the guy was going to play it all last year, let alone put up those types of numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, the guy could suck ass this year, but I'm just saying after what I saw last year, he was one of the feel-good stories of last year. It's hard for me to put him on that list. But you know what? Hold on. Yeah, I might agree with you. Because it's actually, now that I think about it, it's hard to, if we're saying a bottom 10, that means 22 through 32. Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to put him any higher than that. Yeah, he's got to be in that bottom 10. He hasn't shown enough to have moved out of that bottom 10. You're right.
And turns out, he takes them to like a 5-1 record through the first few weeks of next season. All right, always a crow. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
The next one has to be so what am I at 8?
I don't know. I lost count. I just like all the names you're throwing out there.
Well, I mean, we're getting down to the last two, I think.
It's your list, so I mean, you should know how many names you put out there.
Well, I think Mr. Trubisky's next.
Trubisky has to be on the list, I would think. Yeah.
Because I think that was 8. I think he's 9.
He's the front runner for that list.
Yeah.
And if Nick Foles would have beat him out for that job, he might be on that list. So.
Yeah, but like you also have to throw some of these guys like David Carr, who kind of hasn't really ever. He had that 1 year with it, and hasn't done anything with some guys around him.
Yeah. He's so bad that we're calling him his brother's name now. Derek Carr's been so bad we're calling him David. How disrespectful!
They're both terrible. Both of them.
They were.
They both had one good season, got a contract, and we mentioned his brother more because he's on freaking Fox. He's on the NFL Network. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you know what's so sad and how bad Dak Prescott is that David Carr a couple years ago, while an analyst for the NFL Network, beat Dak Prescott in an accuracy contest. They had an accuracy contest there, and a throwing contest, and David Carr hit more targets than Dak Prescott did.
Yeah.
That was when I was like, I don't want to hear any of these Dak Prescott arguments. You just got beat by David Carr in an accuracy contest. The dude stunk when he was an NFL quarterback, but he hasn't even played in the NFL for 5 years, and you got beat by him in an accuracy contest. He's just fucking retired.
Now, where you put the kid from Denver? Are you going to put him on this list or no?
I actually really like Drew Lock's upside. Obviously, he hasn't played enough to probably sit there and proclaim him to be anything special. But if I'm just using my eyes to judge a quarterback talent, I really like what Drew Lock showed. He's got all types of arm ability, which we already knew that watching him at Missouri. He always had arm talent. It was inconsistent at times at Missouri, but you knew he had arm talent, the ability, the big arm and the ability to make all the throws. You could see that there. You saw from him last year that I thought was really impressive, and I thought you saw it in his first start when they won against the Chargers. He's got some mocks about him. there's an it factor there that I feel like the way he carries himself, the type of competitor that he is. I was really impressed with that mox that he showed as a competitor early on. I don't want to say it's unfair to put him on this list because obviously he only played 6 games, but he went 5-1 as a starter for a team that was 3-8 when he took over. And all of a sudden.
Now the other name is Roethlisberger. He's also in that conversation with Philip Rivers. He's been terrible the last few years. Watching that Pittsburgh team fall apart, which probably was arguably one of the better teams over the last 5 years when they had Brown and they had Bell and they were doing their thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong there. A guy, Tyrod Taylor, obviously with the Chargers right now, if he starts the year as the starter, would probably be in that list for me. And a name that, Jets fans aren't going to like it, but I think Sam Darnold is fucking awful. I think Sam Darnold is awful.
I think he's about to blow up this year. I think the Jets, the Bills will run for their money. Watch that team.
Here's my problem with Sam Darnold. Is anybody that comes out and says, I was seeing ghosts out there, one, you're just extremely fucking stupid for even admitting that in a live interview, like after one of the worst games of your fucking life. Like, you're talking about giving other teams like firepower and ammunition as far as things like you're pretty much admitting my vision was so fucking bad out there, I couldn't see shit. Like, I'm throwing balls to guys that it's just like you're pretty much admitting you're that fucking lost at that moment. Now, maybe you just had a bad moment in a bad game. Have you really seen enough from him where you like his skill set and his talent enough where you honestly think he can put all that together?
He's a guy that I think can make the throws, but he's been running from his life, man. Like, that offensive line is horrendous.
I don't disagree there, but I'm starting to question the pure part of him. Like, yeah, he's got all types of arm talent, but we've seen a million times with guys that have $1 million arms and 10-cent heads. I think he's a guy with a 10-cent head. And to worry me a little bit at some point going into year 3 of your career and you haven't seemed to have brightened up at all. I guess that's the right word. Like, I haven't seen any type of growth from like an awareness perspective to make me think that arm talent is going to help at anything. Like, at best, he's a Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was probably a bottom 10 quarterback for most of his career, was he not? Like,
even if he is Jay Cutler was still middle of the top 15 quarterback. As bad
was he?
He was a big gunslinger. That's all he was. He was a big gunslinger.
Jay Cutler was fucking awful, but
he was a bad gunslinger.
Yeah, he.
But if you look
Jay
at
Cutler's a fucking savage.
Anywhere between 15 and 20.
I like Jay Cutler the person way more than I'll ever like Jay Cutler the quarterback. What he just did? What did you read this story about what happened with him and his soon-to-be ex-wife? Did you read that fucking story? That dude's a fucking pimp. Yeah, his ex-wife demanded like a new car and a new house or something, so he had the bank lock his bank account so that she couldn't fucking have any access to any of the money. He said, "Good luck with that, bitch. Like, stop mooching off of me." She doesn't like how lazy he's become in retirement. She says he just lays around the house and does nothing all day. I was like, well, that's kind of what he did during his football career. But let's be honest, if you played in the NFL for like the amount of time he did, made the money that he did, what the fuck did you expect me to do in my retirement? That's why I just played in the NFL for all these years, so I can lay around the house and hang out with the kids and lay in the pool and drink beers like a lazy fat ass for the rest of my life. Don't you expect me to get up and fucking do something around the goddamn house? I'm just going to pay somebody to do something around the house. Jarrett Stidham was another name. That's a good name, Spidey. Obviously, we really haven't seen anything of him, so he's got to be in that list, right? He's going to be the Patriots' starting quarterback. He's got to be in that bottom 10 list. We've got no idea what that guy is going to be. And this is where a guy like Josh McDaniels really all of a sudden gets to show, is he a good coach or is he not? How good of a coach are you? Because if you can make Jarrett Stidham look good enough where you can win football games, all of a sudden you've got an argument to be like, hey, like, look, I know how to coach my ass off. It wasn't just Tom Brady being the greatest quarterback of all time all these years. I actually know how to coach my ass off. Because I know a lot of people that hate on McDaniels. I actually think McDaniels is a hell of an offensive mind. I think he was completely completely not ready to be an NFL head coach when he got hired by Denver. He was just nowhere near mature enough and mentally ready for that role. But I think he's a hell of an offensive mind. I think too many people have written him off as, he's just, when you've got Tom Brady as your quarterback, everybody looks good. Not really. I mean, guys don't, throw 50 touchdowns and win MVP awards, just because, there is coaching that goes into that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's done, for the longest time, he did a great job of making any type of receiver in that system find a way to, scheme them open from the slot and all different, he's found a way to get, it's always that same type of player too. The 6 foot, 5'11", he's not fast, he's not electric, but they just understand how to get open in zone defenses and things like that. He's done that his whole career as a coach. And he did it. He even did it, if we want to say, well, what about when he wasn't in New England? He did it for a couple of years in St. Louis when he had a guy like Danny Amendola as a young wide receiver in St. Louis when he was an offensive coordinator there for a couple of years. So he's got a chance to prove that he belongs back at the top of like head coaching candidate lists and stuff like that. I actually have a buddy that is a Italian evaluator that's really, really loves Jarrett Stidham. So we'll have to see. I don't know enough about him to give my opinion one way or another. I'm just going to wait and see with it. You got anybody else? So that's your 10. You don't have anybody else? How about honorable mentions of any kind, or people that maybe like are right there that you were thinking about adding to it?
League. I mean, you could kind of do like what was it, Tannehill / Mariota? They're not so. That's a weird situation right there.
Well, Mariota's actually in Oakland, and he could take Carr's job, or Vegas, I guess now. I actually think Gruden probably loves Mariota's skill set. When you look at what John Gruden is as a coach and the type of offense he wants to run, I think he would love a guy like Mariota's skill set, his ability to move him outside the pocket, move him both ways, left or right, move the pocket with him as he goes, his ability to use his legs and gain yards. I wouldn't be surprised if 6 games into the year, Mariota's the starter.
You still have to question what's going to happen down there in New Orleans with Breeze aging at a rapid pace, and what's going to happen with
Winston's there.
Backup.
If something would have happened to Breeze and he would have get hurt, you're speaking of guys again that could they be in a position. We were talking about Arians earlier and what type of coach he is. Peyton's a guy that if Winston can't figure it out in Sean Payton's system and figure out exactly what he has to do to become a better quarterback, he's never going to figure it out. I think this is his best situation to figure out. Oh, I've got to stop being such a dumbass, and this is how I become more effective, because he clearly has the arm ability. You've seen him make great throws. He makes so many boneheaded decisions, and he does it at such a consistent rate that it just makes you scratch your head. Like, how could anybody make? And something that made me laugh is he announced this offseason that he was going to get the surgery on his eyes to correct some type of like nearsighted or farsighted issue or whatever. Like, it took you to throw 30 interceptions in an NFL season to realize your eyesight sucks, and you need to get it fixed. Maybe if you would have did that 5 years ago, we would have been having this conversation. But it just seems like a weird situation to me. Now he's going to watch. Now if he goes and balls out, he's going to be like, "See, I didn't suck before. My eyes just sucked, and I needed to get surgery to fix it."
You were too lazy to get done when you needed to. But yeah,
he's going to enjoy all the crab legs down there. He's going to enjoy it.
Honorable mentions, right?
I thought we covered enough guys, whether it be they belonged in like the guys you brought up, like Tannehill and guys like that would probably be guys I'd put either in that 10 or maybe right there on the verge of being outside that 10. Like Tannehill, it might be a little bit unfair because he's coming off a good year, but we know what Ryan Tannehill is. Like, we know what the guy is as a quarterback. Like. I'm not.
Now we mentioned it's gonna be Feathers off, but are you gonna mention Nick Foles or not?
Yeah, I mean, I already said this. If Trubisky to me might be the worst starting quarterback in football, I think he's that bad. And I think part of that is because the guy's a broken. I think he's got a broken psyche now. Obviously, playing in a city like Chicago isn't easy. People there can be rough, just like they can in Philly. And places like that, they do not like, especially Bears fans. I mean, they're kind of one of those So I'll compare them to Cleveland in a way, or to the Browns in a way where they're kind of like that lovable loser franchise. They don't ever like it's a lucky year if they ever are any good, but those fans are some of the most passionate, hardcore fans you're ever going to come across in any sporting, for any type of sport. Like I've never seen people like be as diehard as they are and lose and suck as much as they do as I have Cleveland Browns fans. Like, how do those people continue to sell out that stadium, knowing every single year it's the same story over and over again? That takes a special type of person to be able to be that much of a hardcore fan to do that. So
I wasn't really putting them on that list, man, because like their fan base is special. They have history of being a good franchise. It's just it hasn't been.
Well, both franchises do. The Browns and the Bears, if you go back far enough, the Browns and the Bears both have a history of being successful franchises. It just hasn't happened as of late. But I would say that's one thing that would.
Damien, go check that one out, Damien.
I would say the one thing that would keep me from putting them on that list too, or at least on that list ahead of other teams, is I actually put, like, some people might say it's irrelevant. I actually weigh the fact that, like, a team's hardcore fan base, that actually means something to me. If you're doing something well enough as the fan base to keep fans coming back and selling out your stadium even though you suck, that means there's something there that keeps those people, attracted to you enough to make me say, okay, you know what? They're just going through a rough time right now. At some point, they will figure this out. That they wouldn't be, the first team. The Browns go and win a Super Bowl in 5 years, and all of a sudden this conversation becomes irrelevant, right? The Chicago Cubs were lovable losers for over 100 years, and then they go and win a World Series, and they're right back to being one of the top, organizations in baseball. So I look at it like that. Like, organizations with a big-time following like that and a hardcore fan base are literally one championship run away from going back into the conversation of being one of the most respected franchises again. So that's kind of how I try to judge things a little bit if I'm using my eyes. My problems with the Knicks is, of course, the Knicks are in that conversation, but I don't see the Knicks at any point anytime soon even coming close to sniffing a championship. So it's like the idea that a championship is going to fix anything for them. They haven't won a championship since 1960-something, and they're this close to losing New York City to the Brooklyn Nets. Fucking teams. You're this close to losing New York City and your New York fan base to the fucking Nets. That's embarrassing.
Yes, remember, the ABA's net.
The ABA? Okay, if you say so.
Now you're
I'm not sure if I follow.
Somebody who you felt was inferior to you.
Oh, I got you. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
I got you. I follow you. Yeah, I'll put it like this. Both Trubisky and Foles will be on my list. I think Trubisky's probably going to start the year as the starter. I have a feeling he's going to stink up the joint enough where Foles ends up getting a shot to be the guy at some point. I probably like Foles. I don't say probably. I like Foles as a starter more than Trubisky, because Trubisky might be the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. I think he has zero confidence. He's got a broken psyche, and then on top of it, he's got broken mechanics that can't be fixed, or it seems like they can't be fixed. So that's a tough combination to go with. But that being said, Nick Foles is the 25th. Like, if I'm ranking starting quarterbacks, he's like 25th at best, 22 at best. He had a chance maybe last year to show, in Jacksonville that all those things people have been saying about him aren't true, and he got hurt again. So I think at this point, Foles is what he is.
Had an offense that was placated to what was Nick Frank? Because I don't.
What's that?
They didn't have a balanced offense before Nick even do anything.
I don't think. I mean, I'm more basing it off of. I don't think Nick Foles has really been ever good to begin with. He had, 2017. He got hot, and it's one of the greatest, stretches, obviously, in Philadelphia sports history. He played out of his mind in the second half of the Vikings NFC title game. He was average in the first half of that NFC title game, but you go back. The Falcons game, he wasn't good. The Cowboys game, he wasn't good. He was so bad, actually, in the Cowboys game that there were some people calling for Nate Sudfeld to start in the playoffs. That's how bad he was. And, I wasn't that crazy, but he was still bad. He was bad in the Raiders game. I'm going to love the guy for catching lightning in the bottle the way he did and getting hot enough and playing at a high enough level to bring us a Super Bowl. I just don't think it's an accurate representation to say the guy can do that over a 16-game stretch. And people love to point to the Chip Kelly year. Obviously, it was a long time ago, but I'll even say this about the Chip Kelly year. The one thing that has always scared me about anybody that put up any type of numbers in that Chip Kelly year in 2013, I'll point to the fact that Riley Cooper had over 800 receiving yards that year and eight receiving touchdowns. We were running – it was such a new system, and we ran more plays than any team in NFL history that year that I think defenses around the league, it took them so long to catch up to it and figure it out that you saw guys put up numbers and have types of years that they were just never going to come close to having again. Like Riley Cooper has no business having an 800-yard receiving season and 8 receiving touchdowns in any NFL season, but he did that year. I don't think Foles, Foles was a lot better player at that time than he is now, but I don't think he was ever the 27 touchdown, 2 interception guy that he was that year. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. I think at his best, if you want to go back to 2013, something like that, he was a top 15 quarterback. I think now I'm ranking him 20th at best. And I don't even think that's disrespectful. I think that's fair. Like, it's not like I'm saying he's 30th and he's one of the worst quarterbacks in football. I just don't think you can make him any higher than 22, 23. Like I said, 20 if you're being as nice as you possibly can be.
Hey man, with that, but also you got to remember he struck lightning in the bottle before too, and they just ran into a New Orleans team that had a better offense than we had a defense that season.
Well, you're talking about 2018, right? Or you're talking about 2013 with Chip Kelly when we lost to the Saints in the playoffs?
Yeah, 2013.
2013.
He caught lightning out of that season too.
And that would have been a year where you would have looked at that and said, "Hey, that was the perfect year." Everybody caught lightning in a bottle that year. D-Jack stayed healthy and had his best year as a professional. Riley Cooper was having a good year. We were running the ball pretty effectively. The offense was just playing at a level that, like I said, we ran more plays and had probably a more effective offense that year than any offense in NFL history. But that's what happens when you bring in new systems like that sometimes that the league has never seen before. That would have been the year to go make a Cinderella run and go win the Super Bowl because it just kind of had that feel to it at one point. It really did. You kind of felt like, when he was throwing 7 touchdowns against the Raiders, you're like, this is just unreal. Like, the league can't figure us out right now.
That system, it's something different. Do you see Baltimore repeating the success they had last year this year?
No, I think unless Lamar Jackson can prove that he can take another step. And by the way, Spidey, that's a terrible take. Kyler Murray is my best word. Kyler Murray is he would be one of the guys I'm looking at this year of taking a step forward and solidifying himself as a very good quarterback in this league. He's going to be close to a top 15 quarterback, if not better than that this year, I would think, between his arm and his running ability. But now repeat the question. Spidey got me all fucked up there when I saw that.
I mean, I got some things fucking me up too, bro.
No, I saw that. It got me all fucked up. Now, repeat the question. Do you remember?
I mean, I just think at this point in time where they are, that team.
You asked about the Ravens. You asked about the Ravens.
He can do it again. He can do it again. I think with that Chicago team, he could have them, in line for a playoff spot, not to win that division.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about Mitchell Trubisky starts the first 10 games of the year or something like that, stinks it up, and then Foles comes in. Well, if he's winning the job, I have zero confidence in Nick Foles being able to do anything for a 16-game season. I just don't. He's never shown that ability. He's never shown that. So that's what would concern me there. Now, if it becomes a situation where Trubisky's the guy and 9 or 10 games into the year, he stinks it up enough where they go to Foles for the final 6 games and they catch lightning in a bottle. He goes 5-1 down the stretch, maybe, because he's done that before. But I just can't see him being effective enough for 16 games because he's just never been that guy. And you don't become that guy at this point in your career. If you were never that guy before, you just don't become that guy now. That's kind of how I look at it there. Now, the Ravens, I think they're going to have a great offense again, sure. Jackson, I think the one thing that concerned me with them last year, and I think we saw it in the playoffs, is if they get into a position where they have to play from behind and Jackson has to be the guy that you can't rely on Ingram anymore. You can't run the ball. You can't try to use, they were doing a great job of making everybody play their game last year. They're going to control they're going to run an offense and control the game the way they want to offensively. They never got caught in a position where they had to do things they didn't want to do. Once they did in the playoffs, you saw that Jackson, you saw what happens when you force him to try to throw the ball 50 times in a game, and he had to try to sit there and do that. He couldn't make it happen. I don't know if he can do that or not. Yeah. That's the step I want to see him take this year. Can another team shut down your running game, have you down by 2 touchdowns, and you just put the team on your back and bring them back and say, okay, boys, I've got this, let's do it? Or does he have to be a guy that continues to play within a system that they try to build around him? And that's not a knock on him because he's a great player in that system. But you can't always rely on that system, as you saw in the playoffs. If there's a time when that system gets shut down, now it's time for you to go do something special and take over this game and still find a way to get it done. And I don't know if he can do that. And I use that argument with people when they ask me, would I take Wentz over Jackson? Yes, I would, because Wentz has proven to me that he can be put in a situation where he has to take over a game. He has to put the team on his back. He has to find a way to get it done without, anything else around him and with his back against the wall. And he's now been able to prove he can do it. Until Jackson proves that, I don't know if their offense can be any better than last year. They had a historically good offense last year, so I think it'll be hard to get back to that level. They're still going to be a good football team. The Ravens always are. They're too good of an organization. But I think he takes a little bit of a step back.
Well, I guess we'll have to see. I think they did some good things in the draft too. So you have to see what happens.
Oh, they had a great draft, and they always have a great draft. I wish we were the Ravens, bro. They are probably, when you're talking about worst run organizations in pro sports, the Ravens will never be on that list. Never. They belong at the top of any, you talk about great organizations in sports.
They had a guy like Ozzie Newsome there for so long. I mean, he just puts things in place where you can't. It's a no lose situation.
You know who they remind me of? A great comparison to them is the Spurs in the NBA. They're like the NFL's version of the Spurs. It doesn't matter who comes in there from a talent perspective, top to bottom. They're just such a well-run organization. They never miss a beat. They always seem to find a way to keep up with. Oh, we lost Ray Lewis. That's fine. We replace him with this guy. Oh, our linebacking core is getting old now. Terrell Suggs and guys like that. That's fine. Now we draft Patrick Queen. They have a great knack of being able to recognize exactly what their biggest need is, and then also being able to fill that need with a player that ends up actually being good. Unlike too many teams who just have a need and then the guy stinks and they seem to go through that revolving door at that position for years and years and years. The Ravens don't seem to miss on guys. If they need to fill a position or they need to find a way to get better at a certain position, they always seem to do it. It's amazing how good they are at it.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the Saints and Vikings are going to be teams you have to see if they're going to go up or down this season.
Yeah, the Vikings to me take a step back. I don't know. I mean, Kirk Cousins is Kirk. He is what he is. It's whoop-de-doo. You finally won a playoff game. Good for you. They lost Stephon Diggs. That was stupid. They draft Justin Jefferson.
They replaced him.
But Jefferson can't play outside, and he can't on film. He can't play outside. The numbers show that he can't play outside. So they already have a slot guy in Thielen, so they're going to try to obviously force Jefferson to play not only in the slot but also outside at times, and he's not really effective outside. So they were much better off with Stephon Diggs at that position. Whatever. It is what it is. But to me, Jefferson is he doesn't make them any better. I just think he ends up as a person that's he's a guy that's in a position where he's either going to be forced to play out of position or he's going to be stuck behind Thielen because Thielen probably can't play outside either. It's I don't know. He doesn't excite me. I know there's a lot of people that seem to like him as a prospect. I think if he ended up in the right position, where they could try to develop as an elite slot receiver, yeah, but I don't think that's what the Vikings want to do with him. They're going to try to force him to play outside. My bottom 10, since we seem to be procrastinating, I'll list my bottom 10. Yeah. Trubisky leads it. I think he's the worst quarterback in football. It gets hard from there. I got Darnold in my list. Like I said, I don't like Darnold at all. Jets fans keep using this. Well, he needs to have an offensive line. He needs to have weapons. He needs to have the. That doesn't explain how, he's talking about seeing ghosts and going out and fucking acting like he's Joe Namath getting mono from fucking dirty women on the weekend. Like, bro, the only way you get away with that is if you can actually play like Joe Namath. If you can't play like Joe Namath, you can't get fucking mono from some dirty bitches just because you want to live the New York City lifestyle. That ain't the way this works. I'm just saying. Stidham's definitely in that list for me with New England. I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Hoyer becomes their quarterback at some point this year, just because they're so comfortable with him in that system. They'll probably still find a way to win 8 games because they're that, Belichick's that fucking savvy as a coach, but I don't see them being a playoff team. The Dolphins, Fitzpatrick, if he's their starter, stays in that list. A lot of people are high on Tua. I think Tua is going to be one of the biggest busts we've seen in the past 20 years. I'm completely scared of his medical. I don't think you get you can't convince me that. I don't care how much medical science has come. You can't get the Bo Jackson hip injury and convince me that everything's 100% and there isn't some type of long-term effect there. Dislocated hips and hip injuries of that kind, of that seriousness, are nothing to fuck around with. So that definitely concerns me. The medical reports that talk about how bad his fucking ankles are, that definitely concerns me. And I think the guy, I get what people say, he's a polished thrower of the football and all that, but I don't see a guy with upside. I don't see a guy that, to me, gets much better than what he already is. Whatever. That's how I feel about him. Nice prospect, but I don't see him winning MVP awards. He doesn't excite me. There's nothing. I would have much rather have had Burrow. I'd much rather have had Herbert. I'd much rather have Jordan Love. Those guys, to me, have a way better future than Tua. And, obviously each man has his own opinion, and opinions are like assholes, right? Everybody has one. But, yeah, he scares me to death. I don't like him at all. I want to leave rookies out of the conversation, though, best we can, because it's always, it's unfair to. Of course.
That's why I'm putting you guys on there.
Yeah, every rookie's going to be in a bottom 10 quarterback list because you just don't know what they are until you see them. So, I'm not going to put them on that list. I'll probably just give you an idea of how I feel about certain guys. I like Burrow's talent, but I don't know if I think Cincinnati's a dumpster fire organization. You've got to be a super special human being to be able to elevate, be such a fucking phenomenal special talent to be hey, I don't really care how much of a dumpster fire you are. Just jump on my back, boys. I got this. He might make them better than they've been in a long time, but I don't know if he can make them a respectable, good franchise again. Stafford's on my list. Bottom 10 quarterback, Stafford is probably the most physically gifted of the guys I put on my list. I don't know how many times I can watch him, just underachieve throughout the course of a year before before people can't 100% unanimously accept the fact that the guy isn't that good. Kirk Cousins is in my bottom 10 list. I don't care what type of numbers he puts up. Use your eyes and watch his skill set. Kirk Cousins looks like my older sister playing quarterback. That's just he you know what I mean? It's he looks he looks scared. You know what I mean? You ever see the look on his face whenever you get pressure to him to punch him in his mouth a little bit, he turns into a little fucking girl. Literally, I've known soccer players, at my old high school when the girls' soccer team won back-to-back championships. I've known soccer players on that team that are tougher than fucking Kirk Cousins. Really. I've umpired girls' softball games with bitches that are tougher than Kirk Cousins. He's in my bottom 10 list every single time. Soft. You know what you need to know about Kirk Cousins is he came out and they said, what do you think about the NFL and the idea of playing with no fans in the stadium? And he said it'll be a relief to be able to play a game with no fans in the stadium for once. Soft. You are soft. You can't. You can't have fans in the stadium because you're fucking soft. And in fact, anytime anybody criticizes you or boos the fuck out of you, he turns into an emotional little fucking girl. Kirk Cousins is fucking awful. Dude, that's like he's such a good dude too. Like I don't know why I have to fucking sit here and act like I hate the guy so much, but like, I'm sorry, he's just bad. Jimmy Garoppolo is in my bottom 10, believe it or not. And you want a hot take? There's a fucking hot take for you. How could he be in your bottom 10? He took a team to a Super Bowl last year. That team took him to a Super Bowl. He might have the best play caller or the best offensive scheme, at least in all of football. There's a reason we brought in a guy in Scangarello to try to even steal some of those schemes and those ideas from the Shanahan offense, because the NFL is a copycat league and we see it every year, right? Once somebody has success with something, if you're a smart coach and a smart offensive system, you try to steal a little bit from that team and that scheme and do the same thing yourself. He's in a great scheme with tons of talent, and he can't fucking make an easy throw. I don't care how deep of a throw. That throw to Sanders in the Super Bowl was an easy throw. You make that throw. You, Steven, you make that fucking throw. And that's how easy of a throw that is.
And I got bad shoulders.
And you got bad shoulders, I'm just saying, like, I was out on the Jimmy Garoppolo train. Like, I'm done with this guy as soon as I saw that happen. I was like, one, you suck so bad, your head coach lost complete confidence in you and was afraid to put the game in your hands with the game on the line. Then when he finally had no choice and he had to put the game in your hands with the game on the line, and it calls the perfect play call, and your speed receiver is 2 yards. See, I'm so pissed off. Got me over here choking on my own fucking words. His speed receiver is 2 yards open, like 2 yards of separation from the nearest defender, which is wide fucking open in the goddamn NFL. And this dude still couldn't even put the ball. Like you couldn't. He overthrew him so bad you couldn't have even thrown you could have thrown a blanket over Emmanuel Sanders, a fucking tablecloth of some kind, and that like the football was still so far fucking overthrown that like. Yeah, it's like that's 2 or 3 yards overthrown is fucking terrible in the NFL. You can't make that throw, you suck. So, yeah, he's on my list. Teddy Bridgewater's on my list. I know, Teddy Bridgewater. What a great story. Came back from that devastating leg injury. He stinks. He's on my list. He might be like 22nd or 23rd, but he's still on my list. It's like Chris Jericho. You've made the list. Let's see. Who else would be on this list? I'm with you with Phillip Rivers. I agree. Phillip Rivers has to be on that list.
It's unfortunate. It is what it is.
Tyrod Taylor's on that list. Jared Goff's on that list. We're probably getting pretty close to 10 at this point, aren't we? That's how many is that?
8, yeah.
7 or 8. What other direction do I go? Who else could be on this list? I've got to think of the guys that I like compared to the guys I don't like. This gets where it gets tough because you got a lot of guys that are kind of right there in the same conversation, and it just comes down to maybe who do you like slightly more than somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Baker's skill set, and I think Baker figures it out this year and takes a big step forward. So just based on that, like where I'm at with him alone, I don't want to put him on that list this year because I actually think he ends up being like a top 15, top 12 quarterback this year, somewhere like that, in the 12 to 15 range. And for example, like I like Baker Mayfield's skill set more than I like Dak Prescott's skill set. Like, and that'll tell you a whole lot about like his skill set.
Where Baker is underachieving, Dak is overachieving with a team that is probably similar if you think about it.
Yeah.
Minus the better offense.
If you gave Baker Mayfield Dak Prescott's like football mind, Baker Mayfield, we wouldn't even be having this conversation about him right now because he would probably have already solidified himself as one of the better young quarterbacks in football. But because he hasn't figured it out mentally, that's why we're having this conversation. And I've always spent, at least with young quarterbacks, I give them time to try to figure it out mentally. Everybody matures at a different pace. Not everybody's, not everybody is going to be as mature as Peyton Manning was at 23 years old. Not everybody, and some guys end up in a position where they have a guy that can groom them, that help them mature mentally. Like Brett Favre is a great example of that, all over the place mentally, early in his NFL career. Phenomenal arm talent, all over the place mentally. It took him actually getting with a guy like Mike Holmgren and Andy Reid and Steve Mariucci and having a combination of coaches like that were able to groom him and kind of tame the wild animal that he was to kind of get the most out of his abilities. Not everybody has the luxury of ending up in a good situation like that. And I think Baker's kind of in a position where he's really been put in a position where he's kind of figure all that out on his own. And that's never really a good position to be in as a young quarterback. You've got some flaws and some issues and some maturity issues and things like that. And what you need is a father figure. You need somebody that's there to slap some sense into you the way Mike Holmgren was with Brett Favre at times. And he just hasn't had that throughout the course of his career. Maybe Stefanski's that guy. I don't know. But I think that's more what he needs. And I'll give him a couple more years to figure that side of it out because I do think the arm ability is there. Whereas I feel like a guy like Jared Goff is just mentally he's got it. Like, yeah, you know how to read defenses and the playbook and all that. You're just so limited physically, and your physical skills are so limited that there's just not much that can be done to help elevate him or make him any better than he already is. So guys like that, like Andy Dalton was a guy I used to always put in that conversation, and obviously he's not starting now, so it's hard to put him in that conversation. But even when he was putting up numbers with Cincinnati, even when he was throwing for over 4,000 yards and all those touchdowns, he was always in my bottom 10 quarterbacks. Because I looked at it like there's nothing special about this guy. Like, and you're throwing to AJ Green. Like, good for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you just look at your skill set. You don't have a big, strong arm. You don't extend plays. You're not athletic. You don't make people miss. And it's you just if you get protection, you get the time to sit back there in the pocket. You'll make the right read and find guys down the field. Great. Nick Foles can do that. You know what I mean? You're not anybody good enough for me to sit there and say he was anything more than the 18th best quarterback in football. And that was being generous even, but he's always probably been closer to like the mid 20s than he ever was, closer to the top half. But he had a couple of years there where maybe he was close to the top half. But even when he was throwing for 4,000 yards, that's why I love using, like when you talk about just forget about numbers because not everybody plays in a fantasy football type offense. When you look at guys' skill sets, if you look at numbers, Dak Prescott's a top 5 quarterback. But I'm laughing in your face if you're really telling me when you look at how guys play the quarterback position and guys' skill sets and upside and things like that Dak Prescott is one of the top 5 most talented quarterbacks in all of football. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. Of course he's not. He's not anywhere close. So when I get down to maybe like we're ranking the bottom 10 guys, I might go and leave a guy out just because I like his skill set a little bit more than somebody else's, even though somebody else's numbers might be slightly better. If that makes sense to you.
I got you, brother.
We
gotta get going too. I know they gotta get ready for the Sounds at 7, right?
Yeah, they've got the sports sounds coming up at 7. I'm getting bit the fuck up by mosquitoes out here. Fucking Florida is no goddamn joke, bro.
Never was, man. Never was.
Jesus Christ, it's like 100 degrees and I've got mosquitoes biting me up.
It's all that water, man.
I don't know.
Surrounded by all that water. That's what it is.
Of the big 4 sports, which ones come back? In your opinion?
You'd have to say baseball is at the bottom of that list.
Baseball is definitely at the bottom of that list. Yeah.
Baseball
is
probably at the top, then hockey. And football is probably all depends on what happens the next few months.
Yeah. What scares me about baseball out of the rest of them is baseball's the only one that doesn't have a plan. The rest of them have at least announced a plan, right? The NHL's got a plan for when they want to return. The NBA has a plan. Baseball's over here with their thumbs up their ass. They still can't even come to an agreement on money. They don't even have a plan. Like, you got to come to an agreement on money before you can come to a plan on when you're going to return and how well that's going to work. And they're not even close on the money side of it. And anybody that's been involved in any type of negotiation process knows the minute that somebody refuses to give a counteroffer, that's the moment that the negotiation process is pretty much done, right? Like the fact that the Players Association not only rejected the most recent order from the owners, but they also came out and said, we're not going to have a counteroffer. That kind of tells you we're done with this whole fucking stupid game, and it's about to get ugly. That's what it tells me, at least.
Hey, man, at this point in time, the baseball putting themselves in a position where I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from as far
They're
as
not. I would bet money that they won't. I mean, like, this is, what an ironic time. Did you see they had the race for the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa 30 for 30 last night? Yeah. Play fucking 30 for 30 with everything going on in baseball. They're going to need something like that again to save them. And I just don't think they can fabricate something, like that again to help save the sport. It's just way past the point of no return at this point.
I'm with you. You don't have enough stars to do it. They don't know how to build stars anymore.
Yeah, or that's the biggest problem. Market them. Right, they don't know how to market them.
Well, I mean, you can look at a lot of sports and say that. I say that a lot about where I come from. The MMA side of things. They just get a guy or girl, run with them until they leave, burns them out. This is them all.
They've done a better job of marketing stars than MLB. I even say this, over the past 10, 15 years, we're doing this, that mid-2000s run. I mean, NASCAR did a better job of marketing their stars than baseball did. Dale Jr. was a bigger, more famous, popular name than anybody in baseball during that time, as far as you're just looking at a national level.
The best guy in NASCAR at the time. Dale Jr. was a top 5. That's it. He was the best guy in NASCAR ever.
No, but he was the most popular.
His dad was,
his dad was the most badass. Dale Jr. had a very underwhelming career from a success perspective when you compare it to what his dad was. But he was, you want to talk about top 5, he was always at the top of the highest earning athletes, the most marketable athletes, like any of those lists. He was always up there. You know what I mean? The closest thing baseball probably had to him was Derek Jeter. And once Derek Jeter was gone, like, you could just see the writing on the wall that they were never going to be able, or they were going to struggle to build a star to the level that Derek Jeter got to. Derek Jeter kind of took the torch from Griffey and became that face of baseball in the 2000s when Griffey was that guy in the 90s. They don't have a guy that can, and Trout should be that guy now. And baseball can't market Trout to the point to make him that guy. It's so fucking scary.
Well, and here's the thing. Now, we all know Bryce Harper has that PR machine behind him. It's always been behind him. Now he's in this market in Philadelphia, not in Washington. Do you think he kind of steals the reins over out if the Phillies are successful over these next 5 to 10 years?
See, I love Bryce. I think Bryce is exactly what you want on a baseball team. He's old school. He's got the leadership. I think young players rally around him and they look at him and say, forget about what the numbers say. The guy plays the game with a winning attitude. He plays the game with a winning mindset, and when you play the game that way, it's contagious to the younger players around you. And I think you brought up the marketing side of it. That's going to help put asses in the seats for the Phillies for all these years. He has everything that would say, yeah, he should be that guy. For whatever reason, I don't think the public likes him enough for him to ever be that guy, which is weird to me because Derek Jeter was a complete piece of shit douchebag too. But like, everybody fucking loved him. I can tell you firsthand stories. I know guys that umpire down here. I got a buddy I umpire with that owned a bar down here in the Clearwater area in the Tampa area, and he talked about when Derek Jeter was dating Jessica Biel and how he used to come into that bar and people were just, oh, Derek Jeter, and he was just the biggest douchebag to everybody there. Like, fuck you guys, I'm so much, I'm fucking Derek Jeter, leave me the fuck alone. But you could be that if when you're that fucking good. But the point is, like, the guy's a douchebag, just like Tiger Woods is a douchebag and shit like that. But like, for whatever reason, the public pick and chooses who they want to hate. They hate Tiger Woods, but they love Derek Jeter. It's such a weird thing to me. I don't know if Harper's a likable enough character to outsiders to the baseball public, I guess, for him to ever be that guy. But from a marketing perspective, he's got everything you would want to throw that behind if you were the league. That's my take on. He's one of the few guys in the league that probably has that type of charisma. I think if you ask Trout seems like a lot more of a down to earth type of guy. Where he probably would just be like, I don't want that attention on me. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I just want to go out there and play baseball. So maybe that's part of the reason why he hasn't tried to take a bigger step forward in being that guy.
I think Rice has that kind of like rock star like vibe to him.
He does. Yeah, absolutely. Bryce 100% has that.
Not because he's here. It's because of like that what he brings to it. And you're right.
Yeah.
Right on with Trout. I think he's too much of like a ho-hum guy to kind of be like, I'm going to be the face of Major League Baseball.
It's sad because I think Jose Fernandez was the other guy that maybe had that mox and that charisma that from the pitching side of things that could have been a guy that the league really tried to push and market. And obviously we never got the chance to have any of that. But like if you take Harper out of it, like I'm struggling to even come up with a name that I would say is even in that conversation that has the type of rock star personality, the charisma that's necessary to push it as the face of your sport. Can you think of anybody? I really can't. Like Mookie Betts, but like even a guy like that, I don't think has the same type of rock star mentality as a guy like Rice.
I don't think it's a cultural thing either, because like some people try to say that like there's not enough American stars in some of these sports, and I don't necessarily think that should be a case for any of these major football organizations, whether we're talking about NBA, NHL, whatever. I think a lot of them don't kind of. I guess because they're not partners with your organizations, it's more why like you don't really see a push from the NBA or the NHL for kind of a situation. It's not like we're boxing, like it's like almost like when you're a champion, you become part of that promotion, that promoter becomes attached to you. You know what I mean? Where it's only like our your team, because when you get your love from the team, you don't get the overall love from your main player, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a big problem they're going to have to figure out if they want to bounce back from everything, because they're already going to have effects from fans and all that are unhappy with how everything's played out. And that's going to be a big thing they're going to have to figure out if they want to regain some popularity and some steam.
Well, I mean, in reality, I think
going forward.
Because of how multicultural baseball is between, a lot of your South American players, your players that you get from overseas, from over in Japan, stuff like that. You have somebody that's kind of the face of each kind of one of those backgrounds to kind of do something with this to kind of push it to that next plateau. And I don't know if you're ever going to get that from Major League Baseball. And in reality, if they don't get something going soon, who knows if it ever comes back.
This is all going to snowball, or at least has the potential to snowball into the collective bargaining agreement next year, and then into a strike, and then they really are in a position where they might not be able to come back, at all. Like it's just MLB baseball as we know it will be done. That's a conversation that I think we're going to have a lot more here over the next few months, because I don't think this is going to fix itself anytime soon. Both sides seem pretty stuck on where they're at from a negotiation perspective, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything that can be done to change any of that. So I see it going. Somebody, you might have to have some type of independent mediator or something like that step in and try to fix it come the off season, come the winter months or something. That way they can try to figure something out before spring training next year. Because if not, I see the same type of issue going forward. They're going to continue these negotiations. Both sides are just going to play hardball with each other, and you're not going to really see any progress. And if they don't fix it by like spring training next year, people are going to be like, fuck you guys, we've moved on to some other sport. And they're good.
Like I said,
I think
some of these sports that are just on the outside, like
Yeah.
soccer, boxing, MMA, we're kind of trying to push into that realm.
I think fans have made it very clear. They've already made it clear that they're perfectly okay with moving on from baseball, and moving on from it to some other sport if that's the case. Like that's what's scary about this is like I've seen way too many people be like, yeah, whatever happens. Like the people are literally. I think baseball thinks, oh, people need us. I think people aren't going to be as upset as you think they are. Like I think in Major League Baseball severely underestimating that.
And speaking of which, as we were just talking about it, Rob Manfred not confident there will be baseball in 2020.
Oh, really? Well, this is after he just guaranteed there would be like 3 days ago. This guy's a clown. Oh, my God. We've already talked about him. He needs to fucking go.
I've already said it. Like listen, you got guys who are the owners of some of these organizations who are a man in a suit. Well, that's the definition of an empty suit.
Bob Costas for commissioner 2020.
Somebody, man.
Bob Costas. He's actually expressed interest in becoming an MLB commissioner. The longtime broadcaster.
Yeah.
He's expressed interest in becoming commissioner. He's got my vote.
Hey, man, anything's better than what's going on. You have to bring somebody in. If this is really what's going to happen, we're done with baseball for 2020. And somebody needs to, do something on both sides, both from the players or union organizations to the owners to the upper management of baseball. You all need to get on the same freaking page.
Do you think baseball would be better if like somebody like a Jeter or somebody like that wanted or expressed interest in becoming the commissioner or a future commissioner? Like I think they might really need like some type of mouthpiece or like somebody that's there as the public face that the national public recognizes and knows and has confidence and respect for. Somebody like Jeter would help in that situation. Somebody like Chipper Jones might be a great baseball commissioner. You know what I'm saying? But who knows if somebody like that would ever be interested in doing it? But you know what I'm saying? Like, now, interesting conversation. One we should have another day.
Yes, sir.
Steven, you need to be on the rundown with me from now on consistently. The only person that seems like you're not scared to go back and forth with me. I have to hold everybody else's hands and spoon feed them. And, you're a grown man at the grown man table. You don't sit at the kid table come holiday time, do you? You're always at the grown man table, aren't you? You sit with the grown-ups.
I'm not afraid of a conversation about anything. It don't matter what we're talking about. I'm down, man. I've done so. Like you're sitting there saying, like you and Frankie done shows since you guys were in high school, man. Like I've been doing shows since freaking 2013. I've been doing so much of this stuff. It doesn't matter, man. Like I can talk all. And I've been following sports for so long. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. Like I got something to do. You know what I mean?
We're gonna have to get somebody on. Get me a Doug Glanville or somebody like that, former Philly that we can have conversations with.
You just dropped the name drop on me because I've been trying to hit him up and try to get him on, man. But Dougie G's one of those guys, man. Just somebody who's multifaceted in different aspects of the game. You gotta love it. You gotta like listen. When you're doing media, you gotta have a Swiss Army knife, right? Somebody who can do anything.
Doug Glanville, the guy I could talk baseball with for hours. See, now you got to get him on for me, Steven. Make it happen.
Oh man, dude, we'll figure something out. We're gonna have a lot more fun with a lot of the stuff that we're working on. Like I had to see some stuff in the chat that the Kevin and the guys are working on. You're about to go nuts.
I'm going to reach out to a couple NASCAR drivers, see if I can get them on. We'll get Martin Truex Jr. on since he's from South Jersey and he's an Eagles fan.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Closed mouth don't get fed.
We'll get an A2D following, a NASCAR following going on A2D. It'll make Tommy happy.
No.
And on that note, before I get a phone call, I'm Zach Burr. That's Steven Reichel. This has been the rundown on A2DRadio.com. Check us out on all of our A2D radio platforms. You can find all of our content, stuff like iHeartRadio and SoundCloud, apps like that. Make sure you check out our content on all of the different A2D radio platforms. Until next time, YouTube, Twitter, all of it. Can't miss it. Good stuff on all the platforms. And if you're one of those people that aren't necessarily on the shows, but you just you're into memes and fun things like that, we've got a couple fun Facebook groups you can join and become a part of too. Stuff that's borderline inappropriate and gets out of hand quite often. You'll have a ton of fun if that's the type of person you are. So we got something for everybody here at ATD Radio. Just make sure to check us out on our Facebook page. But for Zach Burr, Stephen Michael, this has been The Rundown, atdradio.com. Peace out.